Om Shri Sai Ram. uh, Welcome to yet another session of the Gita Vahini. We are, nearing the end now of the Gita Vahini study. And in the last session, we just initiated the conversation on this beautiful chapter called Purushottam Yoga, which is chapter 15. What I wanted to do before we go any further is to just play a brief clipping of Swami as he's talking on a relevant issue, and then we can get started with our regular flow. So just bear with me. Tell me if you can hear uh, my sharing of the video and the audio part of it also. Okay? Thank you. Can you, one of you, can you hear the audio, Shubha, or anybody?
Yes.
Can you hear the audio?
Yes, Sai Ram Ravi, yes.
Okay. Then I'll just make it full screen. Let's enjoy this. It's a very beautiful piece, and then we'll get started with the regular.
ప్రపంచ పనులు ఏ చేస్తున్నా కూడా ప్రపంచ పనులు నా ఇంటి పనులు ఆఫీస్ పనులు అట్లా అనుకోకు ఆఫీస్ వేరు కాదు నువ్వే ముఖ్యము నీవు ముఖ్యంగా ఉంటున్నప్పుడు నువ్వు నేను చేస్తున్నాను ఆఫీస్ ఇది ఎక్కడ ఉంటుంది ఇంకోటి ఇక్కడ ఎక్కడ నువ్వు అయి నువ్వు పెట్టుకో ఈ పనులు ప్రకృతి యొక్క పనులు అన్ని నువ్వు మార్చు
So I just wanted to, share clipping with you because it is so profound. And I want you all to take to your chat windows and tell me a little bit about, I know the audio was soft, and sometimes the way I look at it is Swami was sharing something really profound. And when he does that, he makes us yearn to catch every word that he is speaking. So let's take to our chat windows. Let me hear from some of you. What are some of the beautiful nuggets that you were able to catch? Let me, for those of you who could not hear the beginning part, so that is Arvind Balsubramaniam, one of the people who work in Radio Sai, very wonderful student of Swami. And he, leads a lot of the development of content at Radio Sai. And he happens to be near Swami. I think this must be 2006 or 2007. That setting is the Bhajan Hall. And you can see what a beautiful setting, never to come again. Those moments. Shirdi Baba's statue, that big marble Shirdi Baba life-size statue is just in the same frame as Bhagwan. And then Swami is on that chair that he used sometime from 2003 onwards, after he fell and he had the fractures, up until 2007-8 when he moved to a different chair. But from the chair, those who know Swami can recognize what time frame it is. So I was there until 2005 October, and Swami used to use that chair once or twice. Even I had the great good fortune of helping or assisting Swami. That was an automatic chair, and it was all wired and all that, and it would raise the chair would raise up and then enter the car. So but that is more on the physical aspects of what you saw. I want you to take to the chat window and tell me what is the core theme that Swami was talking about? And the question that Arvind asked Swami was, Swami, isn't it wrong? Isn't it our ahamkar? Are we not being egoistical by thinking that we are God? And then Swami proceeds to give a humorous answer, which was not so audible. I'll tell you about that. And then he talks about something which is really very key. Take to your chat windows. Let's see if some of you were able to catch what is that secret, like Shri Krishna says in Rajavidya Yoga. What is that secret that Shri Krishna is talking about? Go ahead. You are God, okay? And what else? Anyone else? Swami is talking, saying you and me are one. Beautiful, very nice. Anything else? What is central to this whole discussion? What are we constantly missing? And where the whole Sai avatar came for what purpose? And we have touched on this a little bit. I want to see everything is one. Beautiful. I'm still waiting for one simple answer. And you'll be so surprised when I tell you what that simple answer is. I'm hoping to get it from one of you. It is a single syllable, single letter. Now you should be able to get it. I. Exactly. I. And Swami says that I is the one that is to come forth. And if you see what we discussed, brothers, sisters, very recently in the context of that wonderful but seemingly abstract chapter called Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga, we learned that why did Sri Krishna spend an entire chapter talking about that? Because he wanted to move the focus from the Kshetra or the field. And what is that field? That field is the world, Prakriti. That's how Sri Krishna describes it. But surprisingly, Sri Krishna does not exclude our bodies. He says our body, our mind, our ego is also part of the Kshetra. And I'm hoping that all of you are also inspired by this. It is okay for Sri Krishna to say that the Kshetra is the field. Yes, when I look out, I can see the lawns, I can see the cars, I can see other houses, I can see the community. So I can understand that that is the Kshetra. But Sri Krishna even goes to the point of saying, this is the Kshetra. Even your own body is the Kshetra. And that is a huge, that should lead to a huge, self-introspection, that how come even my own body, my mind is considered as Kshetra. So that we discussed. And that leads to this theme that what is subjective knowledge versus objective knowledge? The knowledge of the field, education, knowledge of science, knowledge of the news today. And Swami has said in the Gita Vahini that you are also addicted to the newspaper. In fact, in this 25th chapter, which I am now using, Swami often says, you're also addicted to the newspaper. And there is nothing new in the newspaper. The newspaper is constantly becoming waste paper. And what he means to say is that you are so enamored, you're so we have been taught to seek knowledge of the world, which in the Gita is called the Kshetra or objective knowledge. And brothers, sisters, you and I have this opportunity as we sit here on a Saturday morning to understand these things, because and that's why Sri Krishna, after talking about Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, this Jnana Yoga is really, the last 6 chapters are really the yoga of understanding ourselves and the relationship with the world. So with that, let me share with you some of the other verses within the uh, 15th chapter. So it's we started, if you remember, by talking about that Ashwatha tree. And I showed you that in Calcutta, there is one tree which occupies 6.5 acres of land, and it has its roots above and the branches below. And Sri Krishna, I'm not going to go into that again now, but just as a recap, he says that the leaves, the shimmering leaves, are the Vedas, and they help you to understand that in this topsy-turvy world, the roots are above. And then he goes on to say, Adhascha urdvam prasritasya shakha guna pravriddha vishaya pravala. Which means, stay with me on this, it is genuinely inspiring, provided you allow yourself to get into it. And let's not get lost in the Sanskrit words and all that. But the meaning of it can drive us to a deep inner understanding. And he says, the branches of the tree extend upward and downward, nourished by the three gunas, with the objects of the senses as tender buds. The roots of the tree hang downwards. The roots of this tree are up. And why are they up? Because they connect. They are figuratively up, meaning they arise from God, and they lead to the downward flow of karma from our other lifetimes, and that is then fulfilled during this current lifetime. So going further, then he says, fascinatingly, again remember, this is Purushottam Yoga. Natad bhasyate suryo na shashankho na pavakaha yad gatva nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. Fascinating if you allow your mind not to come in the way. And why today in 2020 you and I are sitting and thinking that in the abode of Sri Krishna, in the abode of Sri Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, there is no sun and the moon, no fire illumines. Why? Because the sun, the moon, the fire, the touch, the sights, this is all in the realm of the world. And they nahi, that is just one actually, that supreme being lives in an abode where none of these are important. And he, that entity, is far beyond the sun and the moon and the fire, which you and I consider so important. But there is a very beautiful second line in this verse, which says, Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. And that is what you and I are constantly, as from the time we found Swami in our lives, this has been our search. Sometimes we might forget it, but we are all trying to make an effort. And what is that key word in this chapter, in this verse? Nivartante. Yad gatva na nivartante. We are all striving. And this self-knowledge that we are getting from this chapter is that when we are able to make the transition out of this material world, then you will enter that abode where the sun and the moon, you're not basically, what does the sun and the moon remind us of? Our dependencies. You have to wake up when the sun shines, and when the moon is shining, you know it's time to, these things govern our life. Fire just stands for the warmth. So we seek fulfillment, warmth, safety, protection. But that is only until such a time as we have made that effort to reach that supreme abode of Swami. And then I'm just going to hurry on because there are one or two very beautiful verses which I really do make time to dwell upon. And he says, Sri Krishna says, this verse many of you are familiar with. Mamay vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. And then he says in that verse, the embodied souls are my eternal fragmental parts, but bound by material nature. They are struggling with the six senses, including the mind. And then, now this is the verse which I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. This is the 8th verse of the 15th chapter, please, I really request you to, there is a lot of value in this verse. Stay with me and also please participate in the chat box when I ask you a couple of questions. Let's quickly go through this verse. Shariram yad avapnauti yad chapyutkramat swaraha ishwaraha grihitvan vaitani sanyati vayurgandham ivasyat. Fascinating meaning. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into the word meaning, but I want you to really take away, even if you don't remember anything about this chapter, except the fact that two or three things I would like you to remember. One is what Swami has described in the beginning, that tree, that Ashwatha tree, which symbolizes our existence. It doesn't symbolize only the world, it symbolizes the way we live, our existence, our entanglements, our bindings. And at the root of all of that is our mind. And I want you to take this as the second piece of important meaning from this chapter. As the air carries the fragrance from place to place, Shariram yadavapnauti, you know, just as the air carries the fragrance from place to place, so does the embodied soul. He's not saying the soul, he's saying the embodied soul. The embodied soul, that is the Atma, the soul, the, the life spark within each one of us. It carries the mind and the senses with it. And this I found to be very fascinating. And then he says, when it leaves an old body and enters a new one. So, when you want to really reduce this to a very simple evidence, you can take examples of people who has and those leanings, those tendencies, those likes and dislikes are being bound with that soul and going from birth to birth. So I want embodied soul carries these mental and sensual leanings from birth to birth. Let me see if some of you have any thoughts on this. What are examples of these mental leanings? These, what Swami often used to call vasanas. And then I promise I'll tell you a quick and interesting story. Anybody? Karmic debts, okay, okay. Karmic debt, yes. Tendencies, likes and give me some examples. Can you give me some examples? All of you are experienced, yes. Desires, raga, go further. So that is at a very high level. But in your own life, in the lives of people around you, right? So I'll give you from my side, somebody from childhood wants to become a great singer. Biases, stereotypes, judgments, yes. But somebody wants to become a great singer. He doesn't know why, but he's having that great urge to learn singing. Sometimes when you ask a child, he will directly tell you, and you will see that thing fulfilling through his life. And then there are other examples of these leanings and tendencies. So I'll tell you, one day in Kodaikanal, I promised I'll just tell you a quick story. Personalities, yes, thank you. So I'll just tell you this story and you can think of more examples meanwhile. We just categorize these personalities into type A and type B, but really speaking, there are an infinite number of personalities. And each one has a different shade of, higher manifestation of one or more. Sorry? Somebody needs to go on mute, sorry. So one day we were sitting around Swami in Kodaikanal, and this was about 20 days had passed. I think somebody needs to go on mute, brothers, sisters. One of you, can you just mute
Yeah,
yourselves?
I did that, Ravi. We should
No
be good.
problem. Okay, sure. So we were all sitting around Swami, and in our batch, I think we went on the 3rd or 4th of April, and we stayed till the 6th or 7th, I think, of May. After Ishwarama Day, we came back to Vrindavan, that is Whitefield. Around the 20th day in Kodaikanal, Sai Shruti, that beautiful bungalow of Swami, Swami was sitting after breakfast. So we would spend about 9 hours with Bhagwan in his physical presence. We were 54 boys, but some of the boys fortunately had to be involved with serving and other things, cleaning. So we would be a net of about 40 boys aspiring to get closer and closer and closer to Bhagwan. And I have many beautiful memories of that closeness. One day we were so jam-packed around Bhagwan. Swami was so different from any other great personality. He was so and I remember Swami's feet were on a footstool, a biggish, hard pillow-like footstool. And Swami's feet, I was pressing Swami's feet. 2, 3 other boys were also pressing Swami's feet. And I could feel that Swami's feet are perspiring. Now, it is very difficult to make a show of your love for Swami. Swami doesn't like that. But there was no way we could have got the fan to reach Swami's feet because we were all bending over Swami. And so what I tried to do is I just did a test. You know how we do test runs? First we test something. So I just opened my mouth and blew very gently on Swami's feet, like this I did. You can't believe it. These memories have stayed with me. What a sensitive person Bhagwan is. Even physically, he's the crown of all creation, really. Swami was giving a lecture, he was talking. Immediately, he looked down at me, and there was a twinkle in his eye. He did not want to admonish me. He did not look at me in a harsh way. He acknowledged what I was trying to do. And we all take that acknowledgement in our own ways. We all interpret it or whatever you want to call it. And I was encouraged by that. See, we were all very uh, by staying in Bhagwan's presence, the world had not touched us much. So we were just being spontaneous. Somebody would have thought, hey, how can you blow air on Swami's feet? We had no such ideas. And it came to me and I did that. And when I thought Swami is kind of giving me permission. I continued blowing. And you know what happens when and I tried to stay away from massaging the feet too much because I could see that his feet are sweating, perspiring. And he was not the type to withdraw his feet and say, no, don't press my feet. I'm feeling hot and all that. So in our own way, Swami allowed us to show our love for him. And I'm only relating this small interaction that we had to show who Bhagwan was, what type of personality he had, and how he did not want to stay separate from us. Every moment of his life was giving. And that is also one of the main reasons I showed you that video. When we started, I started with that video, I didn't want to talk about myself and show you my face. Because in that video, Swami is hardly able to speak. By then, he is 80, 81, 82. And he's given his whole life to teach, to inspire, to raise the consciousness of the masses. And he's hardly able to talk, but even then he's talking. And I want to conclude this little interlude that I gave you with the main reason. So we spoke about these tendencies. And you know what Swami did in that very talk where I was trying to blow and, cool his feet? Swami looked like that at all of us and said, you know why I have you all with me for so many days? And he said, during the time that entity that you are. Brothers, sisters, you and I are not what you and I think we are, which is just this body. We are actually an entity. That entity includes our soul, our ego, our chitta, ahamkar, manas, and of course this body with the senses. But it also includes within the mind these tendencies. What are the tendencies? Swami said, and this just flashes in my mind, the tendencies are like something that is printed. So you can see this paper, right? You can see this paper. This paper has things printed on it. And that's what Swami said. The tendencies are imprinted on your mind. And he said, during these days that you have spent with me, don't think you are just spending time with me like that. He said, I take your vasanas and I bind them at my feet. And what is the meaning of binding? It means that he does not allow them to express. Because these vasanas, in Sanskrit, the word vasana literally means tendency, but it also means smell. And it's used in a negative way. And he says, I prevent your vasanas, your evil tendencies from expressing. So the favor that Bhagwan is doing us is huge. And can you see my screen? I'm sharing my screen. I hope now this verse makes more sense to you. Shariram yadavapnauti yachapirut kramachishwaraha gritvaitani sanyati vayurgandam ivashayat, which means this embodied soul is carrying the mind and the senses with it, even when it leaves the old body and enters the new one. And it is should be such a huge realization to us why we should live in a pure way, why we should act in a dharmic manner, why we should try to cultivate self-confidence, inner peace, ahimsa, because that embodied soul is clutching, is holding on to these tendencies that we are born with, plus those other tendencies that we cultivate during our lifetime. And it transmits that from one lifetime to another. So for me, these two lines of the Gita helped me relate back to what Swami had said, that, hey guys, when you are in Kodaikanal, you think you are eating, one day, Swami asked me to speak in Vrindavan. And I said, Swami, in your presence, we gain in three ways. Of course, we gain a lot of spiritual knowledge. We gain mental concepts and we learn Sanskrit. We hear the shlokas that you chant. That is, mental level of gain. And then finally, I said, Swami, we also gain a lot because those who live with you get to eat the best of the tastiest of food. And Swami was smiling. All the boys were laughing and clapping because this idea resonated with them, right? We always like to talk about the good food, but Swami started doing like this. He started shaking his forefinger at me and saying, hey, don't emphasize these aspects. But the reality is that living with Swami, we have gained an appreciation for these spiritual concepts. And we have also, in our own ways, started to become more aware about our lives. And then, just to save time, because I'm, getting carried away, I will talk to you about 3 verses which I have shortlisted here. There are 2 kinds of beings. All are within, so this is the 16th verse, the 17th verse, and the 19th verse. And Sri Krishna says there are 2 kinds of beings in creation, the Shara and the Akshara, which means the imperishable. And he says the perishable are all the beings in the material realm. The imperishable or the Akshara are the liberated beings. So this goes back to the whole concept of the cycle of birth and rebirth. If you and I endeavor to get self-realization, then you and I will come out of this realm where we are bound, where we are dependent. Right now, we are in great bliss. We are with our loved ones. We have big houses. We are, safe from COVID, or so we think. But the COVID is one hiccup, one obstacle. And you and I have been through innumerable hiccups and obstacles. And like we said in the last meeting, Swami was teaching that little boy as he was teaching him Gayatri Mantra, Sarvam Dukkham Sarvam Shanikam. And he was making that little child, all of 7 or 8 years, chant that after Swami, made him say Sarvam Dukkham Sarvam Shanikam, you know. And he was saying actually, before you chant the Gita, the Gayatri Mantra, remember that the world is transient and passing. So if you and I make this effort, you and I will become part of the imperishable. And then he says, those who know me without doubt, the Supreme Personality, as the Supreme Personality, truly have complete knowledge. So here he brings back that whole concept of doubt or questioning. And brothers, sisters, I often think like this, that for you and me, the Supreme Divine Personality, we don't even have to think about, you know, some picture or some idol. For you and me, we are so fortunate that Supreme Divine Personality is Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And we have to remind ourselves, repeat that, bring that back into our consciousness. And then what is the only other thing we need to do is don't doubt. You have seen it. You have seen how Swami's actions, both at the level of high magnitude of epic events, of changing the elements, of producing vibhuti from an empty pot for years on end. It's not like Swami had to put all his energy to create vibhuti from, no. Very casually and multiple times he has done this. And then he brought out the lingam. In one Shivratri, he brought out 9 lingams from his body. When he went to Rishikesh and other places, he waited. The humility. The Pandit at that, I think it was the Badrinath temple, begged Swami, said, Swami, I believe in you, but please don't come during the daytime. Thousands of pilgrims are coming. And you know, imagine the compassion of Swami. He was such a great master. He said, yeah, don't worry. I will come after 9 p.m. He went in the pitch darkness with a small group of devotees and materialized a lingam, and he placed that under and a tray, and he placed that under the idol over there. So the greatness of Sai and the great humility of Sai, that should remind us about the Supreme Divine Personality. You and I have not had, I don't have to just read about it. You can see those videos on YouTube. I am narrating to you how Bhagavan allowed me to blow my breath to cool his feet. Doesn't this show you that inordinate, out of the world sweetness of the Lord, who was worshipped by millions, but he is still so bound with each of us in our own way? That is what is the meaning of this Supreme Divine Personality, and then the fact that you should not doubt. And what forms does this doubt take? Not only the doubt that was Swami God, no. Doubt that our lives are unfolding per his instruction. And one day Swami said to one boy who wanted to speak on surrender, you know, Swami played a quick trick on him. After he spoke, Swami made a face and he was very downcast because he thought, oh, my speech was a flop. Swami didn't like my speech. And then Swami called him afterwards in Kodaikanal and said, what happened? Where is your Sharanagati? And, suddenly he realized that that was just a trick. That was just a test. And then his face lit up. And then Swami said, you know how you change gears? You know, in India, we still use those manual transmission, right? Where you have to change from gear 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. But Swami asked him, how do you go from gear 1 to gear 2? And he said, Swami, you have to press the clutch. And he said, exactly. If you press the clutch every time you're going from gear 1 to gear 2, there will be no problem. So Swami said, every time you go from a situation of joy into a situation of what seems to be grief or sorrow, press that clutch. What is that clutch? That clutch which will help you to make a seamless transition between pleasure and pain. That mantra is Idi Kuda Na Manchi Kosame. And I say it in Telugu because it is so beautiful. Idi Kuda Na Manchi Kosame. This too is for my good. This too has been planned by my Sai for me. This is for my good. This has come as a prasadam from my beautiful, lovely, supreme divine personality, whom I knew personally, not from third-hand reports. That supreme divine personality of the compassionate but all-powerful Lord, who manifested in Puttaparthi and magnetized this earth, pulled us all his devotees to his lotus feet. I will not doubt that my life is unfolding per his blessings, per his expressed wishes, per his will. That is the bigger meaning of not doubting Swami. And then I want to bring you back. Sorry, I'm packing this session with so much content, but I want to also take you back because I don't want to do injustice to this chapter, Purushottam Yoga, and this is what Swami said. Those of you who recollect, I started this chapter by what Swami had said in the Gita Vahini, where he says, I am the truth of me. And self-realization is all about realizing yourself. So I want to spend few minutes just talking about this. And, I'm inviting you all to look at this, take this link from the Ramala Center, where one of the devotees has written down the notes from Swami's talk to the devotees in 1983. It's fascinating. We don't have time here. But one of the great ways for you to understand what is this I that we are talking about. And Swami has explained that in the 3 states that you and I operate in, what are those 3 states? Can one of you take to the chat window? I already showed it to you in the Word document, but I just want to see if any of you caught that. What are the 3 states of existence? All of us, 23 of us who are on this call, operate in. Anybody? Okay. So I showed it to you in my Word doc. Waking, dreaming, sleeping. Beautiful. The Sanskrit terms are beautiful as well. Jagrat, which is being awake, being aware, interacting with the environment. Dreaming, when you are in, you're not aware of your physical surroundings, but you are operating in a different world. You are in a fantasy world, but it's not daydreaming. You think you are asleep, but your body is interacting with some other people whom you know or don't know from your past, who may be alive or not. And you are there. And you could be living in the US, sleeping in the US, but in your dream, you may be seeing Jamaica or India or Puttaparthi or Mumbai or your hometown. You may be seeing yourself as a child. That is the dreaming state. And then finally is the deep sleep state. Swami used to say it very beautifully. Gada Nidra Avastha. Gada means deep, in Telugu. When you are deep. So Swami said, these 3 states of being, states of consciousness, you and I are undergoing every day. But we enter and exit from these 3 states even without caring to think and question. So when you and I want to start asking the question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? There are some clues that you can obtain by thinking about your way of how you relate to the world and your body during this. Yes, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Swapna is sleep with dreaming, and Sushupti is deep sleep. So, in deep sleep, Swami says, you are truly yourself because you have completely lost body consciousness. And I want to invite you all, take to your chat windows. What is the other hallmark of deep sleep which gives you evidence that you are your Atmic self at that time? Anybody? What is, when you come out of deep sleep, what can you say about that deep sleep which tells you that it must be a pristine state, it must be an Atmic state? Anybody on the chat? Okay, when you're in deep sleep, the different, you'll often hear people say, oh, I had a very dreamy sleep, I'm not feeling so good. When you're in the dream state, your mind is still active. Restfulness you achieve, beautiful. You achieve that true restfulness. And how does that restfulness arise? No dreams. Yes, anybody else? Can you go a little bit further? Dwell on this little bit deeper. Why in deep sleep do you feel more rested? Come on. Some more people. Mind is not active. Wonderful, wonderful, beautiful. So now you are yourself telling me, now you have, after 15 chapters, you have really got the Gita. I'm so happy. That mind not being active, that is the whole effort that we are all trying to make here. Whenever that mind is active, that mind is active at so many different, yes, you get up absolutely fresh. That mind, even if it is active in a way that is beyond your control, your dreams are never in your control. Is there anybody who can tell me on the chat window whether you have decided to dream something and you dreamt it? Never, never, never can it be. Your dreams come from your subconscious. So when your uppermost levels of consciousness are active, meaning when you're reading, doing a math problem, listening to news, giving a talk, preparing for a presentation, or cutting vegetables, your mind is active. And your mind seems to be less active in the state of dream, but still you're not getting rest, because still your mind is active without your knowing it, involuntarily, so to speak. But tell me this, when you're digesting food, let's say you eat at 10 p.m. and you go to sleep at 10:30, do you agree that your intestines are active? Yes, right? Definitely your intestines are active. We all know, we studied in 8th standard biology that the digestion process takes between 1.5 to 5 hours. So your intestines are active, though you're not physically eating, chewing, munching. But does that affect you? No. When you sleep, if you have gone at 10:30 into deep sleep, though your physical body, your inner organs, like your intestine, your liver, your blood is flowing all through the time that you sleep, but that does not disturb you. That does not cause a lack of restfulness. This speaks volumes, and this is the type of analysis you and I need to do. So Swami says that, going back to you and I have to first start with this self-inquiry through these 3 states of existence. And then Swami says, and I invite you all to look at this section within My Baba and I. So we learn from Swami, and also we learn from his great devotees. And Brother Hislop, a great leader, Brother Hislop, has this beautiful passage which I want to quickly dwell upon. He says, people ask the question, who am I? The question is taken to be a way to get from oneself the deepest knowledge about oneself. I hope you are able to appreciate what I'm showing here. We are trying, by asking ourselves, who am I? We are trying to get the deepest knowledge about ourselves from ourselves. And then he says, the answer is the questioner. Now, I want to tie up the loose ends. Let us not study the Gita and just forget it. This whole thing that Brother Hislop has said, the answer is the questioner. Kshetra Kshetrajna. The one who is the seer and the knower of the field. Sri Krishna says even the body and the mind are the field, which is another way of saying that you, the knower of this existence, is not the body and the mind. And that is the seer, the knower. And Brother Hislop has so beautifully, so originally said it here. That's what I wanted to bring to you. The answer is the questioner. So brothers and sisters, when you ask this question, and you can see the link is here, I'm not making this up. This has been quoted in Sai Sarthi, which is a journal started with Swami's express blessing way back in the 80s. And I came to know about this because recently they transcribed one of my talks there, and I interacted with that one of the people, Kumkum Bhasin, and I was fascinated. So I often go to that site and I found this. So just as Swami has said, the truth, I am the truth of me. And you may wonder, what on earth are these words? What can we make of these words? And brothers, sisters, you have not to make anything of these words. These are like koans. Another koan, which is very, very common, but none of us have dwelt on it, is we often say, the Bible has said, hear the voice of God in the silence of your heart. How can something be heard in silence? If the voice of God is heard, then that silence cannot be silent anymore, right? The fact that you're hearing, so what it means is that silence is the voice of God. It doesn't mean that if you are silent, you will then hear another sound or a noise and you will categorize that as the voice of God. No, no, no. The true silence is the voice of God. In the same way, I am the truth of me is not meant to give you the answer in a way that the mind can understand, because this mind is the root of the problem. So the answer is going beyond the mind. And that is what we said, that this mind is the cause of our bondage. Because as the embodied soul goes, and that is the favor Swami did as students in Kodaikanal, he took our vasanas. For those 35 days that we were with him, he gave us rest. Just like you wrote in the chat box that you get true rest when you're in deep sleep, we, without knowing it, were in an atmic state of bliss around the Sai Avatar in Kodaikanal. Why? Because he took our tendencies, our impressions, gathered and aggregated from lifetimes. Coming back to what Brother Hislop is saying, the answer is the questioner. Stay with this. Brother, this session is, sisters, this is not intended to be a coverage of the Bhagavad Gita. No. Swami is making us do these sessions. I am doing this session for my evolution. You all have to think of it like that. You are attending this 1 hour session so that this should tune you with Swami. If I am failing to make you attuned with Swami, I am an abject failure. The intention here is to bring you those resources, those ideas, those compelling proofs that should make you want to act. Not go back and read. Yes, go back and read. But this should spur us. This is a call to action. Look at what realization Brother Hislop has had. The answer is the questioner. This means there is no answer in the customary question and the answer dichotomy. Don't lose yourselves in the English of who am I. Don't lose yourselves in saying, oh, I don't know what is this, what is who am I, And Swami says, when you ask the question, who am I am I. Why does Swami say, and this is another beautiful, you can look at this, I can send those of you who want, there's this site called satyasai.org. There is a whole PDF on I am I. And I wanted to point out to you that look at Sai, the humility of Sai. He says in this discourse in 2007, I am I. I am not Satya Sai Baba. Can you even believe Swami saying that? I am not Satya Sai Baba. Satya Sai Baba is the name given to this body. I don't have any particular name. And then for our guidance, he says, when you question yourself, who am I? In 2003, on December 25th, he said, you will get the reply, I am I. I am I. And why does he not say, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayamatma Brahma? Why? Because he does not want you to go again into the mind. The moment you say, I am Brahma, I am God, then if the Christian will think I am Jesus or Moses, if he is a Jew, the Guru Nanak devotee will picturize Guru Nanak. But I want to tell you something really important, and the importance of the Guru. Do you know, when Sri Ramakrishna worshipped God from many different forms, it is written that when he worshipped Ram, he became like a Hanuman. And it is said that he grew a small tail at the base of his spinal cord. When he worshipped Sri Krishna, he got that fervor of Radha and he started behaving like a feminine devotee. Then he went on to realize God through the path of Jesus. So fascinating, so beautiful, so inspiring. But one day the mother tells him, now I want you to get the realization of the undivided, unmanifest Brahman. This is what we are speaking about in this Akshari Brahma Yoga and Purushottam Yoga. And at that time, Mother Kali sends him a great guide, a great guru. You can go and read about this. It should inspire you. Totapuri, who's a great Advaitin. And, you know, when he starts to teach Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he's shocked, he's amazed, because the learning and the sadhana that he has taken 42 years to imbibe, to assimilate from his guru and from his own sadhana, he finds that Sri Ramakrishna has covered all that learning and teaching in a course of 3 weeks. And in the third week, when Sri Ramakrishna sits to meditate, Totapuri combines his consciousness with Sri Ramakrishna's consciousness and realizes that Sri Ramakrishna is limited by the visualization of Mother Kali. He's not able to soar beyond the visualization of the form of Mother Kali, which means that he's still trapped in the confines of his mind. And at that time, Totapuri picks up a piece of broken glass, which is lying waste over there in that garden. And he physically cuts the forehead slightly. Not that he made a big wound, but these are all figurative, explanations or analogies. And he tells Ramakrishna, take the sword of the buddhi. That's why the buddhi or the intellect is so important. And cut left and right and forward and center the form that haunts you. And let your mind be no more and soar into that transcendental reality. And that is what you and I are trying to do. So Swami says, I am I. Don't limit this second I. I am who? I am Brahman, I am Tat, I am Jesus Christ, I am Swami, I am Shirdi Baba, I am, even to say I am the unmanifest, I am the wave of consciousness on the ocean of awareness. No, don't do that. I am I. And do not dwell on any form of separateness. And then he says, then you will realize that unity. So we are all talking about unity. We are all struggling. How do I see myself as him? How do I love the person whom I hate? How do I think that the person who committed crimes and is convicted and standing a trial and who is going to be in jail, how do I look as Swami had that oneness of vision with criminals, with saints, with ordinary people? How do I, that cannot be cultivated by you and I wanting to do it. But the first step that you and I need to take at the juncture of our sadhana that you and I are, and that's also the meaning of this 15th chapter, is to discover the truth of you, which is that I am the truth of me and that I am I. So I've tried to cover a little bit more of the Purushottam Yoga, and I was fascinated at how Sri Krishna, talks about these fragments of the impressions that we gather during our lifetime, and those get attached to our soul. And when we lose our lives, we go into the next lifetime, we carry that load of past impressions and current impressions. But if you and I do some serious sadhana, and that serious sadhana is not leaving our families, that serious sadhana is not leaving our jobs, that serious sadhana is leaving our minds. And first step is to realize that all objective knowledge is not going to take us to that kshetrajna, kshetrajna, outside and inside. And we have to reject, we have to let go body, sensory perceptions, memories, uh, all kinds of impressions. And then, like Totapuri, this great saint, did for Sri Ramakrishna, cut asunder all our bonds and let the mind soar uh, into that I am I state. Not I am Brahman, I am Sai, I am all of that. I am I. And there is no answer I can give you. You should not say, hey Ravi, you are confusing us more. You are not, why don't you tell us the answer? That is the beauty of spirituality. Unlike science, mathematics, or physics, where you can read the answer, you can turn to the back of the book and see, oh, these questions were asked in chapter 9, but at the end of the book, I can get all the answers of chapter 9. No, no, no. Sai has given us through a lifelong of teaching, as you saw in that first video. He is encouraging us to explore within, not try to go to Mars as Elon Musk and others are trying to do, but explore the space within. And for that, we need purity, silence, non-violent thoughts, set aside thoughts of greed, jealousy. And that's the basis, that's the foundation the Gita has laid for us. And then when you inquire, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And don't seek a verbal answer. And don't allow the mind to bubble up answers. But pray to Swami. Swami, you are all powerful and you are all compassionate. How should I do self-inquiry? Help me, Swami, help me. And then in that silent space, throw that question, who am I? And don't wait for any waves to appear. And I am I. Stay with that. So with that, I will stop, and I think we will have at the most 1 or 2 more classes and sessions, because we have kind of completed the 15th chapter. So we now have Daivi's Asura Sampad Yoga, which is the next chapter, and then 2 more chapters. But I want to thank all of you for your participation, and many of you have joined me week on week. It's been a fairly long journey. I think 9 or 10 classes we have had. And I'm very grateful to Sai and to the organizers for having let me do this. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Ravi, is the other way around. We are grateful for doing these sessions. And actually, interestingly, SSIO is pushing for people to pick up Vahinis and study them and imbibe all the message that Swami has given us. And I'm so glad that, we have started the Gita Vahini sessions and learning from it. Thank you again. Let's do Om and 3 Shantis and we can end the session.
Oh. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Have a wonderful week, everyone. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Sai Ram.